ago, Kyle Busch suffered the most devastating crash of his life. He didn't know if he would ever race again, let alone stand in victory lane. The accident and the rehab took an emotional toll on Kyle and his then pregnant wife, Samantha. Now parents, they have a whole new perspective on what's important in life.
People have always come up to me like, hey, you know, this is my son, whatever. I'm gonna hold him for a minute. I'm like, nope, I don't want anything to do with it, you know, not mine, don't need it. But first time I was able to hold Brexton was amazing.
Just having him in our arms and just knowing, you know, how loved he is instantly, it's just something you can't explain.
Life as a dad is definitely different. We're trying to figure out what our new normal is, but it's been great.
Good afternoon, everybody, as we get set for the NASCAR Xfinity Series.
Saturday morning comes around, Xfinity race day to start the season off in Daytona. So as we're running along in the race, I felt like, okay, I need to start making some moves here.
And now cars are spinning just outside the trioval with 9 laps to go.
Kyle Busch has just made heavy contact with the inside retaining wall. He hit it head on.
You're right, KB. You're right, KB. She probably does not know that he's getting out of the car.
Kyle and I have always had this rule since about 2009 that if he gets in any sort of wreck, when the spotter says, "Are you okay?" he has to answer. I heard the spotter say, you know, "Kyle, are you okay? Kyle, are you okay?" And there was just this long pause, and instantly I knew that something was wrong, so I took off.
The cockpit shortened up about 12, 14 inches. Just the force of all of that going through my body just ended up breaking my left foot and broke my right leg. Showing up in the hospital, I kept asking, you know, hey, where's my wife? Where's my wife? And they're like, oh, she can't come in here yet. She can't come in here yet. And I was like, no, she's got to come in here. You know, she's pregnant and she just needs to see me.
They wouldn't let me see him because little did I know he had a bone sticking out of his right leg. The first thing he asked was, how was the baby? You know, did I feel him kick? And was I okay? He wasn't even worried about himself. You know, after he checked on me and the baby, and he said, babe, I don't think I'm going to race tomorrow.
After surgery on both his right leg and left foot, Kyle began a rehab doctor said would take a minimum of 12 weeks. Roughly the same amount of time Samantha had left in her pregnancy.
After he got hurt, there was never a question if he was going to go back racing. It was just a question of when.
Without Samantha, I don't know if I ever would have been able to make it through all of this.
Kyle returned to the track 1 week ahead of schedule, and just 2 days ahead of an even more significant debut.
He decided to go back racing the exact same week that Brexton was coming, so, you know, we just went big all at once.
You're never really sure what God has in store for you, and certainly I think we've learned from each step of the way who we are and what we are, how strong we actually can be.
Brexton was our silver lining of the year. No matter how hard it got, he was always kind of what we focused on, and when he arrived, it just washed everything away.
Well, I've covered Kyle Busch ever since he started his career in NASCAR. It's amazing the number of transitions that he's gone through in his life. He's a young man who's now become a mature man in his middle age, and married now and with a baby, and then all of the things he had to go through this year, including a major rehab after that wreck. It's interesting to see how Kyle continues to progress as a driver and as a person. Speaking of people, spoke with a couple of people in his camp earlier today, one of whom missed him a whole lot during his absence on the racetrack. That was his spotter, Tony Hirschman. I asked Hirsch why he was so concerned missing him for that amount of time, about 3 months that he wasn't on the track. And Tony said, you know, there's a lot of guys who can drive race cars fast, but Kyle's one of those drivers who's 1 in 5 maybe who can do the things that he can do. And I missed that when I was on the spotter stand while he was in rehabilitation. Also caught up with his crew chief, Adam Stevens, who told me that the backup car they had prepared after Kyle's Friday practice crash is about equal to the one that they have had on the track. And why is that? He said when you prepare a backup car for Daytona, you know there's a good likelihood that you're going to use that race car. So we spend a lot of time on those race cars to get them ready for these types of weekends, and we certainly were prepared when Kyle brought the wrecked 18 back in for our guys to go to work on the backup car. They feel very good about their chances. Kyle does very well in restrictor plate racing. He is, after all, the 2008 winner of this race. Krista?
Thanks, Dave. And the overriding theme there is panic. The panic button has not been pushed for the 18 camp. They're just as comfortable and confident heading into this race
show car out of a Publix parking lot to bring it to the racetrack and race it.
Dave mentioned Adam Stevens, first-time crew chief. He's worked with Kyle a lot in the Xfinity Series, so they have a relationship together. But a first-time crew chief here in Sprint Cup, I talked to him this week. He said, ironically, that first practice session, that was going to be their only run. And then they got caught up in that crash. But he also said that happens at Daytona. So now what? How does Kyle get into the chase? Well, it hasn't been all good so far because he has had some tough races. There you see Dover and Michigan. He called those his mulligans.
Yeah, and standing here again yesterday before the Xfinity race, he said those were mistakes he made. That takes a big driver to say those are mistakes I made when I shouldn't have made those mistakes. We would have points. We would be in a little bit better place. We'd have to win. Like we talked yesterday, the win. What did you think was going to be harder, the win or the points? And he said, I thought the win was going to be harder, but guess what appears to be harder at this point are those points. With 10 races to go, a couple of wild card races in those 10. He's just got to be consistent, and he spoke about that yesterday.
Yeah, we talk about the driver having to do his job here. He's got 10 weeks to do his job, mistake-free. That means no speeding on pit road. It's not just mistakes on the racetrack. It's nothing on pit road. You can't speed, you can't lose spots. Each one of those spots is a point that could be very valuable to him. But on top of that, the pressure is on the crew, too. They have to do their job. No mistakes in there. Make sure everything is done properly. But I believe they have a driver that learned a lot last year in the chase with what I saw, the way that he raced there, that has a different mentality and can do this now. This is a more mature Kyle Busch, and I think he's had time to think about what he has to do, and I think that he will put that to good use, and these next 10 will be outstanding for him.
A different mentality and new maturity. He also has a lot of new fans. Since his accident, I think he's sort of become the underdog. Fans have sort of rallied behind him. They want to see him win. They want to see him climb into the top 30. Fans like that. All these fans waiting for driver introductions to take place. There you see Joey Logano going across, shaking hands, having a great time. They are ready to go racing at Daytona. Well, if Kyle Busch thrives on challenges, we thrive on learning new things about this track. Coming up, a former winner of this race,